Welcome. Yeah, to those that are new to this, congratulations. You've done a good day. Hope. We'll find out.
I thought it was going to be a joke and you said congratulations, you've joined the club.
Welcome to the club.
The way you're saying it.
Welcome to the club. Yeah, that's not what occurred in my mind. Yeah. This really astounds us, in all honesty. And it's that there's something that we speak about in this group, and I find it quite amazing that this room doesn't get filled full of people, because it's something when people touch upon it within themselves, it really does something for the individual. And we've had so many people come through this group, haven't we? Sometimes people will come and they'll come for a few weeks and then you won't see them. And I wonder where so-and-so. And you bump into them in the street and they'll tell you what I learned changed my life. And I'm just now living my life. I just want to thank you very much. What I've realised has completely changed my life. This is where my life's gone from where it was. And it's a beautiful thing because we've had hundreds of people, possibly thousands of people doing this. And people come and then they disappear and you don't get to see them again. But it does astound me that we've got this thing. And it's a conversation that can really help people find something magical about life. It's magic. It's magic beyond our intellect. And it's magic not visible to the intellect. So when we speak about this, it's not something that, this isn't a learning as such. In fact, it's the absolute opposite. Jen often calls it an unlearning. It's an unlearning from what we think we are now to what we truly are. And any individual who starts to get a sense of that fact, and it's an absolute fact. What we're talking about is an absolute fact. When an individual starts to get a sense of this fact, life will take on a whole new expression. And that expression cannot help but be more beautiful than what they've previously experienced. So this isn't something that we need to figure out. This isn't something we need to take notes on and read up about or do homework on or anything like that. This is a completely different conversation to what we've been trained to do in school, where you have to actively work on yourself and work and train yourself. Remember this, and remember that. Work on yourself, work on yourself, work on yourself. This is the absolute. And I was speaking to somebody who's online at the moment. And this person asked me the other day, she said, what do I need to do? I said, "You don't need to do it." And then that night, she had a realization, and she said, she fell into this place of just pure observation. This state of pure observation. She said, I was only in it for a couple of seconds. But I understand why you say now there's nothing to do. And it can be really kind of tempting for our mind to try and figure this out. But the only thing that we ask is just listen. Just listen with an open mind and open heart.
I was going to say as well, I think we said it last week. We've kind of got people that have been around this a few years. We've got people online who have been around a long time, some people new. But there isn't a beginning or end to the conversation. There isn't like a course that you teach. There isn't a curriculum. There isn't. So I think it's nice to know that it doesn't matter if this is your first time coming to the group, or you've been loads of times, you can always hear something new. And you can hear the same thing said over and over again, and suddenly it will strike you and hit you, and you realise what's meant or what's said that you hear beyond the words. I think it's weird sometimes to just say it is an interesting group, because we have people come in and out, and it's never like the same group. So it can sometimes feel like, do we need to go right back to the beginning and same with this kind of started? But it's quite nice just to realise that it is an unlearning. It's like as your mind quietens down, the knowledge that you need is already there. It's already within you. Like you've got your answers inside. So there's been times when I've done courses and maybe had 2 days with people, but at lunchtime people are like, so when are you going to tell us what it is? But it's to know that the conversation around it is the only thing we can do, because what we're talking to or pointing to, you can't put into words. It isn't something that you can actually describe in language, but you can keep pointing to it and pointing to it, and then people have their own experience of it. And there's been times where we thought we've done a brilliant job at explaining something, and we've gone on and on and on, but then it was a throwaway line that someone hears, that they suddenly like wake up and hear something and recognise something. So it's quite a nice thing to be around, because there's nothing on you to have to get this or to remember anything. It's recognising that what we're trying to talk to is already up and running. It's already happening. We've already been part of and connected to it our entire lives, but we've just forgotten. And I was watching someone earlier had a short video, and they said it's almost like that state that you're in as a child, when you don't think you know anything and you're learning new stuff, and how quickly kids learn stuff because they're so open. Whereas we get more and more kind of narrow in because we think we know stuff. We think we've already got something. And it said it's almost like going back to that beginner's mind, or that clean slate of there's knowledge that can occur to us we've never seen before. And it doesn't come from anyone else, it comes from within us. So there's nothing you have to remember in what we say tonight. The reason with the title is because often people say to us when we're working, I want the sort of freedom that you have. And then you say, what does that look like? And they're like, well, you're either happy all the time or you're peaceful all the time. And you often say, like, that doesn't sound like freedom. That sounds like a very conditioned life. Whereas this is more about understanding we're going to have all kinds of experience. So there's something you learn about that allows you to go through that with more grace and less judgment and more ease. So I think that title is something that's been quite a big thing in your life.
Yeah, but we also create titles to try and get people's attention, in the hope that people go, oh, you know what, I find life quite difficult. Perhaps I might have wondered that in groups that we're talking about. Sometimes people do, and sometimes people don't. But yeah, what we're talking about is something that can be recognised within ourselves. And like Jen said, this isn't something to get. This is something what we're ultimately describing is what every single being is. Every human being, every tree being, every plant being. What we're talking about is the nature of life, the nature of reality. It's an exceptionally deep conversation, which, when recognised en masse, is truly will change the world. And that's a really big statement. It really is a big statement. But I absolutely know that as a fact. If the world en masse sees this world will change.
It's cool, actually. We've got Joe online who's heading up the campaign down in London for iHeart, which is taking this into schools, and they've just done this huge fundraiser, and they went over their target, and they've raised enough money to take it into so many more schools. So they're like, children at primary age and secondary age are going to be learning about this almost as part of the school curriculum. I think that in itself is phenomenal. It's suddenly getting
suddenly going into schools. There's a big thing pushing for kids. I mean, this has gone into mental health. Some psychiatrists and psychologists have really seen into this, and they see that they mean this with the greatest of respect, and I mean it with the greatest respect as I say this, but how psychology takes people down the wrong path to try and help them feel better, find fixing that. It takes them into the past. It takes them into the pain that they have previously experienced. Let's examine the pain. Let's pick the scab off the wound. And then we expect it to heal. And we're continuously focusing on taking the scab off the wound. But what this has the ability to do is it allows people to wake up to the nature of life. this is a very different conversation, and in its own way, it's changing psychology and psychiatry at its most fundamental level, because what we're talking about is the most fundamental level of reality, and it's a really simple conversation. It's a really simple explanation for what's actually going on. But it can be really easy for us to kind of get hung up on words. So words, I mean, when you actually look at a word and you actually recognize what it is, it's just simply a communication. It's a method of communication. It's not something it's something we're taught. We're taught language. When we're born, we're not born with a language. But we're taught language, and we clumsily try and remember different words. Oh, that means this, and this noise means that. Words are just noises. Or words are symbols written down on pieces of paper. We're talking about what creates that. So as we kind of develop language and we start to live our life in an adult way, we could say, or linguistical way, we can get really caught out by words. So I just want to talk about that just for a couple of moments, because I really want people to get a sense of it's not in these words, because words are simply noises. That's all they are. They're a noise. If I say mug, everybody apart from southern people who call them mugs understands what I mean. I have to say that because I was cup. Cool. Everybody in the north knows what a cup is. Everybody in the south knows what a cup is. And the moment we hear the word, we go, I know what that is. But it's not the thing. It's not the actual object. The object is a vibration of energy, it's mass, it's matter, it's atoms. It's not the noise. So it's like likewise with ourselves. Who are you, Dave? I'm Dave. I'm not Dave. Dave's just a noise that I attribute to this self. Is that actually what I am? Am I a three principles facilitator? Am I this? Am I that? Or are all these just words that we attribute to ourselves? So when we speak about this, please understand that we will communicate this message in words, but these words they're not it. And some people can have a real beef with a word, and another person really loves a word. You say the word God, start shouting about God in the middle of Kendall, some lunchtime, and watch people's reaction. You're going to get a shitload of different reactions. Stop talking about God. God doesn't exist. What are you talking about God? What are you saying about? It's like, what are you saying about him? What are you saying about her? What are you saying about Mother Nature? What are you saying about Gaia? What are you saying about? Everybody will have a different experience of that one singular word. So when it comes to these words, just please understand it's not in that. But if we can kind of listen to the message and try and realize that the words are actually pointing to something in the same way as God is pointing to something that's there. Okay, so we're talking about something that is already present within us. It's happening right in this very present moment. It's happening right now. We're already it. But humanity is in a state of confusion. And it's from this state of confusion where all our problems arise. Every single problem in the world is created from this singular confusion. Again, another really big statement. I'm talking about wars, I'm talking about genocide, I'm talking about racism, the troubles that are going on in South Africa at the moment with the xenophobic attacks. I'm talking about Brexit, I'm talking about greed, I'm talking about environmental destruction, I'm talking about depression, I'm talking about anxiety, I'm talking about suicide, I'm talking about addiction. All born from this singular point. We've actually got a singular point to which to look now to start to understand the nature of all our problems. And for those people who start to recognize it, it does something magical within them. They'll start to find freedom. They'll find themselves free from the limitations of what they think that they are. They will find themselves free from the limitations of who they previously thought that they were. They will wake up and recognize they are not that. And so,
as I say, one of the things with the kids is that they have like a sheet with a TV screen on it, and then it says "I am ... and they have to write kind of on this thing what they are. So they often have like their name, gender, and things they like, and all these things that they think make them who they are. And then we just suggest to them, but what if none of those things were who you are, but you were that blank canvas, that screen, with the ability to create all of these ideas? And it's so cool with children, because they seem to like go, oh, that makes sense, and they don't have so much to wade through, but they don't have so many fixed ideas of who they are. No, because I'm that kind of person. They seem quite open-minded to recognise, oh my goodness, what if I could create something else? And I always say one of my favourite moments in school was because I was really shy as a kid. There was a little girl in the class who had been almost like an elective mute. She didn't speak really in school. And a lot of the other kids said, oh, she doesn't speak. And then the headmaster was observing one of our lessons, I think it was around week 6. So like halfway through the lesson, we'd asked a question and you sort of saw her hand going up almost to spite herself.
It was like a left hand was trying to push her right hand up, or the other way around, trying to pull it back down. It was like...
And she just answered this question so eloquently, and the head teacher was amazing. He just said, like, everyone else be quiet. We need to be able to hear her speak, rather than trying to get her to speak louder. And all the kids were like, oh my God, she can speak. But it was, I think for me, I always said when I came across this, I want to share it because I know how hard school was for me, and being alive was for me before understanding. And to see someone, I think she was 10 or 11, start to see this and go, shyness is a thought. That's not who I am. Like, it was just, and another little boy saying, so assembly can't make me feel something. It's the way I'm thinking about assembly that makes me feel shy. I could answer a question in assembly. And it can seem like such a small thing to some people who don't mind speaking out. But for me, I was like, wow, if I'd started to see at that age, it's all right to speak in public. Like, being in public can't make me feel something. Feelings come from within me. They're not information about a world, they're information about my own mind. And I think it's amazing that there's so many young people now learning this, because like they seem to be so open to it. They seem it's very easy and open to dropping ideas of who they think. Whereas I know I still hold on to loads of my stuff, but they just seem to drop because they're not so attached to it as being them. They kind of seem closer to that kind of age where you don't really have so much idea of who you are. You're constantly trying on clothes and playing games and imagining. But at some point, some of those things that we imagine, we forget we've imagined, and we hold on to them and say that's who we are, and get really fixed. And that's why we often say it's an unlearn. It's a falling away of everything we think we know. And then what's left? What comes to us then? And you can't stop creating. We keep creating new ideas, but you play with it more. It doesn't seem serious or heavy.
I think that's like fundamental to it. It's like, as we get older, we think life's serious. When we're a kid, it's a game. But the thing is, it's always been a game. It's just that we get to this point where we're told, you know, you need to work hard. Focus your attention, focus your attention, focus your attention, work hard, work hard. And all of a sudden, life stops being this really fun, creative space where you can go from this to that. And you become this individual who starts to take life really, really seriously, as though life is a serious thing. But one of the things that people seem to come across when they wake up to this is they realize life is serious. Life's a play. Life's a game. Life's an illusion. Reality is an illusion. And it's a really convincing illusion. And it's a beautiful illusion. And it's an illusion that you can get a sense of that it's an illusion, then you can go back into the illusion. Completely filled by it. But those that get insight into this will go back into their illusion, their dream of life, and they will know that it's a dream, they will know that it's an illusion. And that single point changes everything. Changes everything, absolutely everything. That will change a life. To wake up, mystics in the past have called it the dream of life. To wake up from the dream, and as Sidney Banks, the man who spoke about what we talk about initially. He said, you wake up from the dream, you realize that you are the dreamer. You then go back into your dream, but knowing that you are the dreamer. And that can make absolutely no sense to an individual who first comes across that. So I completely understand. So we'll break that down a bit. The majority of people don't know that reality does not, or experience is not created externally. Some people will probably go, yeah, I know that. But then they will feel affected by the traffic or the weather or somebody, what the words that somebody said, or the bank balance, the mortgage, work, politics, the environment, illness. The majority of humanity is not aware that reality is not an external thing. None of it. The majority of people are not aware that reality is created through their being. Their very presence on this earthly plane means that they are a creator of a world, their world. And their world is being created right now, this very moment. It's this experience we're all sat in. I say we all, as though we're all sat in the same experience, but we're not. There are people here who've been around this a wee bit, so they started to get a sense of it. There's brand new people who are going, what the fuck is this? The fuck you brought me here for, Mark? Yet we're all sat in the same room. Same lights, same people next door, same four walls, same ceiling, same roof, same people. Yet no two people are experiencing the same experience of this room. No two people are experiencing the same reality. This is a really important thing to start to get a sense of. The majority of people are not aware that there is a space within their being through which this reality manifests itself as an experience. Something we call consciousness. The majority of people are not aware that there is this space of consciousness from which all our reality is created in the moment, all the time. This space has been there since our presence was first brought to this earth, and it has created every single experience we've ever lived with. Every single one, no exception. Every single moment has stemmed from something we call consciousness. And it has brought forth a reality which we have just assumed was that. And what consciousness does is it thinks. It thinks. Our consciousness is a space through which thought is brought into our presence. And this is how our reality is flavored. This is how reality, our experience of life, is flavored as a feeling state, as an experience, as a reality. This is a force of constant creation. It's a force that enlivens every single living being. It's not something that human beings created. It's not something that is only present in human beings. But it created human beings. It created everything. It's from this space where all inventions come. It's from this space where all fresh ideas, new ideas like where all new concepts are born. It's where every single thing that humanity has ever done has been born. Whether it is to destroy a race of people, or whether it is to save them, whether it is to create an atom bomb, whether it's to create a wind turbine, whether it's to create GPS satellites, smartphones, all this stuff has been born from the space of consciousness. These are all ideas born of consciousness. And this is where our idea of who we think we are is born as well. This space brings forth all these ideas of who we think we are. And then this is what we call our ego. So this conversation is around starting to see past the ego. In Buddhism and Hinduism, they speak about how if you want to find peace in life, you have to see past it. People dedicate their lives to trying to see past their ego and working on their spiritual self. I think what Sid brought to the conversation was something so simple. He brought a conversation which allowed people to recognize what ego truly is. All of thoughts, beliefs that we carry around about ourselves, beliefs that we are blind to, where we simply just assume, well, that's who I am. I remember speaking to you one time, and you said that you didn't think you had ego because you were so meek and mild and shy. And then one day you woke up and realised you had an enormous ego.
It wasn't my first ever thoughts. I don't love myself. I thought that's what an ego was. And then after the first day, I was like, I've got a lot of ego. It's just belief. It's just self-identity, and yeah, it was quite hard. But none of it's wrong or bad. Like, this isn't about getting rid of it. It's like we're here having an experience as a human being. We see separation, and I think sometimes the ego can get a really bad rap. But it's like, I love the things that I enjoy doing. I love having hobbies. I love my friends. Like, I love seeing duality. I love living in this place. But to also be in touch with that part that knows that that isn't true. That there is something that's the same within all of us. There's something that's present. I think you don't have to then go to war with things about yourself you don't like. You don't have to try and be different. You recognise what it is, like it's a nothing. It's a creation, and it will stay around as long as it stays around, and then it can move on. I think the difference from before is I used to hold tight onto things, whereas now I let things fall away. And I think just to know that the ego isn't a something that we have to go to war with or get rid of or study. Just know that it's coming from thought and consciousness. It's coming from within you. It's not truth. It's not a fact. Then you're open to change. And I think a lot of people can sort of start this conversation and like, yeah, no, I want to change. No, but I don't want to change. Like, I want life to get easy, but I'm not willing to let go of that. And that's who I am. And I like that even despite that, there's something that you're learning about that bypasses the intellect. And you hear it in a place that change happens regardless, because it's something that's true. And I think there's something within us that resonates with something that's true. And I think you get eyes for that rather than what isn't. And I think a lot of the time I used to be so caught up in my ideas and beliefs and as if they were true, whereas now I'm like, I have no idea. I've got no idea why things happen. Like, it always used to be everything happens for a reason. Whereas now I'm like, I don't know if that's true. But I know that if it's happened, then it's happened, and it couldn't have been different. And I think that's something, there's a freedom in that, where you don't have to then be that kind of person. I was saying, one of my things has always been I'm thoughtful, and I always think to send people cards. So that was a good thing about my ego. But then the problem was, as soon as I wasn't thoughtful or I forgot, then I beat myself up. So you can start to see that any ideas we have about ourselves as being this fixed type of person can become a bit of a weight around the neck. And I feel like this just allows you to just keep being present in the moment of what shows up. So then your character does just, it's changeable, it's movable. You don't fixate on an idea of who you think you are. You're in the moment and different things occur, and it feels like it's more of a fluid kind of flow-like state than I'm this kind of person. And if you see that for yourself, you start seeing it in others. You stop holding other people to who you think they are. I think it's incredible for relationships and friendships, because you don't, like, I know with my sister, when we learned about this, I remember just apologizing to her, because whenever I went into a conversation with her, I was like, oh, here she goes again. All this idea about who I never listened. I was just listening to my own mind about what she was going to say, because I knew what she was going to say. And I remember the first time after learning about this, being with her, initially like wanting to be, oh, I'm actually going to listen. And we had such a different communication, and our relationship changed through it. Because you stop listening to your own mind and you get more present in the moment with who you are. You stop looking through all your beliefs and stale ideas, and you let newness come in. Like Sid often used to say, you have to pour out the old wine if you want new wine. But we don't realise how stale our mind becomes, because it is just life. It is just like that. Like when Lisa and I were talking on the walk about how easy it is to create this image of who someone is, and it might have nothing to do with who they really are, but it's in your own mind. So you're like, the characters in my life, they all exist within mine too. So then I think you get more present, you get more curious, you maybe ask more questions, because you recognise, I don't know who anyone is. I've got my version of them, but if you ask 10 people about the same person, you get different versions. Who's one right? Then you start getting more of a sense or more eyes for, where does reality exist? Are we subjected to an annoying person? But some people don't find that person annoying. So where does the feeling or experience of annoyance come from? So I feel like this is something that the more you point to it and get curious, you recognise different questions occur in your mind. Wow, what if reality wasn't what I thought it was? What if the way I see that person could change? The same person that's pissed you off for years, like suddenly you get new thought about them. Like you start to see the truth of something, then knowledge comes to you that's helpful. And I think that's one of the things I've realised, like some of the things I always used to say I wasn't very good at. I'm not very good at that. Can't do that. Starting to recognise actually in the moment, if you're present, often things come to you to help you do whatever you need to do. But it's in our fixed ideas and beliefs that we feel trapped or limited. And I felt this just, you realise we're unlimited. What if we're a blank canvas with the ability to create a reality? What would we create? What would it look like? I remember you saying to someone once, like, if you could dream anything, what would you dream? Like, what if that was our power as a human being, that we could dream a life or a reality? What would we dream? But I don't think we realise we're the dreamer, so we get stuck in certain nightmares, and we don't know that actually within our own mind is a capacity to create something else, that we're never limited or fixed. Like we've all come up against problems that seem totally impossible, and then something's come to mind and we've got over it or we've sorted it out. Or situations that we've dreaded, and we've either gone through them, they weren't as bad, or they were bad, but then we've got over it. Like we're resilient, and I think we forget that.
I think that was the thing that really helped me before I came across this, the people that never met me. I was a bit of a liability to myself and to the world, really. And I mean, I spent a lot of time in therapy. I spent a lot of time on medication, and I drunk an awful lot. Is your light flashing red because of that? I used to drink an awful lot, spent a lot of time on drugs, spent time in prison at one point for being a dickhead. And I always describe myself as the most terrifying man I'd ever met. And I'm saying that to all the psychologists as I sat down and cried like, I'm the most terrifying man I've ever met, and I can't leave me alone everywhere I go. I'm a nightmare. I'm fighting, I'm kicking off, I'm losing my temper. Really deeply unhappy. Really deeply. And then it was when I got introduced to this that I got a sense that there was something true about this. But it took me 9 weeks before I really realised it's true. And it was in that moment of realisation. It's like everything that I'd kind of heard from mysticism and quantum physics and religion, things I'd heard, sayings I'd heard said over time, everything suddenly started to make sense. All of a sudden, life made sense. And it made sense because of one simple point. It was the realization that the experience of life is a state of consciousness. Every single being is a state of consciousness. Nobody could deny it. We're all here now, present. Here. various states of awakeness, in various states of presence, in various states of being. And suddenly waking up and realizing that this power of thought is the sole reason why our lives look good. I remember it was Sue who asked me the most beautiful question that I've never felt so pissed off about in my life. What is thought? What is this power of thought? And I've asked that to a few people just to kind of take this out of the realms of the physical, take this out of the realms of the brain, because we're not talking about brain. This isn't a conversation about brain. This isn't a conversation about the physical manifestation of an organism, such as ourselves. This is a conversation about formless power. It's a conversation about what some people call the spiritual. It's a conversation about something that cannot be studied with a microscope or weighed on a weighing scale or held or put damaged. It cannot be hurt. It cannot be scratched. It cannot be destroyed. And this is what we truly are. This is what, when everybody talks about I, this is what we're talking about. A lot of people think that they are this physical body. Physical body is a beautiful thing, fantastic. But it's not the body powering the body. It's not the brain telling the brain, fire a neuron. If I were to get this pen from this side of the room to the other side of the room, it takes an energy exchange. If I want to drive my car from Staveley to Kendal, it takes energy. If I want to walk from Staveley to Kendal, it takes an energy exchange. Anything in the material world that requires change requires an energy exchange. And this is where this conversation starts to become really important when it comes to things like mental health and well-being, because for so long people have studied the brain and gone, oh, the brain looks like that. Do you know why you feel like you do? This is one of mine, actually. This is what I was told. Do you know why you feel like you do? You've got this chemical imbalance. Chemical imbalance. That's the reason why you're always angry, Dave. That's the reason why you're always depressed. You've got this chemical imbalance in your brain. It was only when I woke up that I realized, no, my brain was working beautifully. No doctor had asked me, Dave, right, look, seriously, you are frigging flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. You are absolutely drenched in it, Dave. What the hell have you been thinking about an awful lot lately? Because I'd have gone, well, do I have to be honest? That would probably be my first question. Do you really have to know everything? I'll tell you some of the lighter stuff. I'm dreaming about killing people. I've been dreaming about beating people up, being happy slapped, so I can completely twat somebody, and like it'll be a legitimate thing. And yeah, you know, I'm pissed off about that person that did this, and I'm sick of life. That was when I noticed it's like when we're fast asleep and we're dreaming a reality. The dream is a dream state reality. It's like a reality experience during sleep. And whilst we are safely tucked up in bed, nicely tucked up next to a partner on our own, whatever, or next to somebody we probably should be with, we can find ourselves in these experiences. This could be it right now. We could all be fast asleep right now, dreaming this very moment. You woke up this morning going, oh my God, I had this terrible dream. I had a robotic head and a robotic eye, and you didn't look.
No,
and you woke up.
You were a robot as well.
Oh, was I a robot? And then you said,
in the dream, I was going, please be a dream, but it wasn't.
And it wasn't a dream.
It was a long dream.
It wasn't a dream in your dream.
No.
So it's like you got really upset. And I did. So in that dream, you didn't know you were dreaming. And it's like this very present moment. Could be a dream. How would we know? Dreams are nothing but thought. They're a conscious state, thinking and creating a reality. And those realities look so friggin' real sometimes. So real. I remember when I was a kid, a few times when I was pissed, dreaming I was going to the toilet. That was a nightmare. And it's like my physiology didn't know. Physiology didn't know. And it's like when I was being chased or I was in a nightmare at some point, I would feel my body flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. My heart would pound, my palms would be sweaty, my breathing would be heavy, my legs would be moving, I'd be making noises. I'm in this terrible place and all this terrible stuff is happening. Yeah, I'm safely tucked up in bed. But my body doesn't know the difference whether it's the dream state and the sleep state or whether it's the awake state. The body doesn't know the difference. The body responds in the same way. If I'm being chased by people in a dream, I get scared, my heart pounds, I'll probably fight them in the dream. If that happens in the awake state, similar kind of experience. The body doesn't know the difference. And we create this separation between the dream state of the sleep state and the awake state, as though somehow there is two modalities of experience. But anybody who sticks around this conversation long enough will hear the point that there is no duality in experience, there's no duality in life. What we are experiencing as a dream is consciousness thinking. What we experience in the awake state is consciousness thinking. This is why mystics call it the dream of life, the dream of existence, where we start from the moment we are, or from whatever moment, is it conceptual? We start to create a reality, we start to create an experience of life. And the moment we open up our eyes after we're born, we see a world. And then we assume that this world is the reality that is creating our experience. 180 degrees in the wrong direction. So for me, it was people, it was money, it was work, all these things created my nightmare of life. A terrible life. It's funny, the lad I went to work with, Ollie, he was dead buoyant at work. You know, we could go and do the same job. I would be effing and blinding at the top of my voice, kicking my helmet across the customer's garden. And yet Ollie would be quietly just getting on with his work. We were doing the same job, same place, same customer, same weather. My experience of it was very, very different from his. I started to think there was something wrong with me at this point. Started to get like these Tourette's outbursts, and Ollie thought that was hilarious. I didn't. There was a massive difference in reality. Ollie loved it. It was funny. It's funny for everybody else. Most of the time. But there was this moment, there was this realization that brought everything together. And it did, it answered this question about my chemical imbalances and all. Everything suddenly made sense. It was at this point when all of a sudden I just saw that life, this is all life is a play of consciousness. All my fears, every single one, every single fear I held, all my love. Who am I? Was a thought. Future was a thought. Past was a thought. The very present moment is thought. Everything is thought. Reality is all thought. This is why everybody's different. This is why I was going to use the example. We all came dressed totally different tonight. Apart from when you look at this, Jenny and I came dressed completely the same.
I got dressed first. The same way.
This is why everybody's different. everybody likes different things. This is why arguments take place in the world. I know that my reality looks so convincingly true and real to me that sometimes it's very tempting for me to try and convince the other person that their reality is wrong. There you go, we said two, we have this argument. And the other person's like, no, you're wrong. All of a sudden, then you get two people that aren't listening to one another, having a conversation about their realities, but not understanding that they're both experiencing a different reality. So, of course, you have to agree. And like you said, there's this point. This is a beautiful thing for a relationship when people start to wake up to the realities. Everybody, no two people on earth ever, from the moment they were born, ever has ever experienced your reality. Nobody on earth experiences the world you do. And likewise, nobody experiences from the conception of humanity has ever experienced the world that we see. We literally all see different worlds. The world exists within our own mind. And it can be a really tricky thing to kind of come to terms with that, because for all intents and purposes, no reality is outside. So you telling me, Dave, are you telling me that if such and such didn't happened, that you wouldn't feel like this? I couldn't tell you, in all honesty. But we've had people come in saying about, oh, you're telling me about war, people at war. You're telling me they're not scared. The bombs aren't creating their fear. Surely those bombs would be creating fear. I said, I am saying, that the bombs cannot create fear. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. The bombs cannot create fear. I know people who went to war, who when they were being bombed, never felt more alive, totally buzzing with it, who loved being in it, who loved being on the front line. I know people who totally buzzed off being on. I also know people who came back who were absolutely terrified. So when we start to get a sense of there is no situation in the world that has ever created a reality or an experience for us, it is purely the way we perceive it, the perception of thought, that is creating our experience of life. You start to find freedom. You realize there is not a limitation on anybody's well-being, and everybody's totally free. Nobody's who they think they are, nobody is what they think they are. You cannot think your way to what you truly are, because that is a thought. But what we truly are is the creator of reality, the creator of life. That's what we've always been, whether it was a child up until this very moment now. We have been the creator of an experience we have called our life. And the majority of human beings have blamed their experience on life on a situation that's happened, a situation that's happening, a situation that's going to happen. We've got confused into an external reality that doesn't actually exist outside of our own perception. So this isn't saying that the cup's here. It is a manifestation of energy. It's an energetic state. You take that to a quantum physicist, say, can you tell me what that's made of? We'll say, made of nothing. What do you mean it's made of nothing? It's made of nothing. If you could get a microscope, Dave, and you could really zoom in and look at the atoms that are building that up, you would see it's just a shimmer of energy. It's a vibration of energy. The whole world is a vibration of energy. It's a massive, massive mystery. And yet we walk around in it as though we know something about it. We walk around in it as though we know something about ourselves. Start to get a sense of the nature of life. It's for it to start to make sense. But as it starts to make sense, you'll realize you don't have to figure it out. You'll realize that you cannot possibly understand consciousness. You cannot understand mind. You cannot understand thought. Because the moment we think about it, we're in creation. The moment we think and an image or a concept has been born, we're straight into creation. What we're talking about is the form. It's all. And that's what every single one of us is. creator of our own life, the creator of our own destiny. I don't mean that in a positive thinking, ooh, you're the creator of your own destiny. I mean, no, we are literally the creator of our very own experience of life. We can't blame anybody for how we feel. We can't blame anybody for how our reality is showing up. It's really bit for some people to swallow. Your mum hated that point, didn't she? So I can't blame your dad when I'm pissed off with him. No, you can, but it's not how life works.
I was telling someone the other day that I can't remember which, it was one at a talk I was at, and the psychologist was saying that when they had the first moving image, they had like a screening, and it was a film of a locomotive train, and they premiered it, and then everyone stood up screaming and ran out because they'd never seen a movie, so they didn't understand that it couldn't come out of the screen, so people were terrified. I was talking to this young girl, so she was laughing at that, and I said, but it's the same with our own mind. If we don't understand our own mind, we're terrified of it. When we recognise it, it seems ridiculous. But I'm afraid of my own thought. I'm afraid of my own creation. It's the same kind of ridiculousness, but we don't realise that. And you realise how deceptive it is. It looks like, I don't know if you've been at 3D cinema now. You've watched people on Fail Army when they've got those 3D glasses on. Like, they know they're in a game, they know it's not real, and they're still like screaming and punching people and falling over. It's almost like, even though we know it's a dream, even though we know it's a creation, we're still going to get freaked out by it. Like, it's 3D, it's real, it's full colour, and I think you get a respect for it, and I think you see, it's so easy for us often to see in other people. They're getting afraid by their own creations, or they're kind of getting stuck in blaming the outside world for how they feel. But then we'll feel totally justified in our stuff. So I think you just get a little bit gentle with yourself, with others, you gain respect for the fact that we think we know something, but really we haven't got a clue. Yeah, and I think we generally get kinder and more understanding. And the thing is with this, it's like you don't have to suddenly believe in something else. You haven't got to take on another idea or concept. You get to go away and see from your own experience, is this true? Does this make sense? Like Sid often used to you suddenly realise we're all schizophrenic. Like, how could you wake up one morning and be like, life is amazing, and I love my job, and this is great, and then nothing's happened, but suddenly you're like, oh shit, I hate my job. And you start to see how our mind plays, but whatever you think you experience, and it's true and it's real for you. If you look at your own experience, you'll start to notice how changeable it is. Because one of the things we were speaking about last week was that we actually have this kindness in our mind that if we have a problem and we're obsessing over it, it's all we can see. But actually throughout the day, our mind goes on to something else, or we're watching a film or with a friend and we're not thinking about that problem. It literally doesn't exist for us. So our mind has let it go. But then at some point the thought comes back in and we're like, this is a massive problem, I need to think about it. But you see how natural it is just to have experience and then it pass through for us to change our mind. And whenever they've asked like executives, when do you have your best ideas, they've always said in the shower, driving, or playing golf. It hasn't been when their mind is working really, really hard. It's when they're relaxed. I think we're used to, like, if there's something in our life we don't like a feeling or an experience, or there's a problem we think we need to solve, we literally put our attention on it and we get so narrow. We don't recognise that our minds are way more efficient when they're open. But we've been the opposite. So I know for myself, I had anxiety and depression, really shy, and struggled with my eating disorders. And I'd literally had 10 years focusing on all of that stuff. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I got less and less able to kind of be in the world. And it was like learning about this was suddenly going, oh, hang on a minute, you've been looking at all of that stuff you think's wrong with you. Why don't you look upstream? What's creating all of that experience? What's creating your feeling of anxiety and depression? What's creating the need to have an eating disorder? It's because you don't like how you feel, and when you do that behaviour, you feel different because your mind's on something else. So what if actually built into us is the ability to have new thought? We haven't got to manufacture it. It's something natural. And there's nothing wrong with any feeling. There isn't a feeling you have to get rid of. Feeling isn't information about the world. It's not something terrible that we need to do something with. it's a temporary manifestation of consciousness. And I think you stop fearing your own mind, and the less you fear your own mind, it feels more inspired and more in flow, the more present we become. And we often say it's like a dance between the two worlds, and then suddenly you're totally in it, and it's like you've forgotten everything you've learned, and then you're back again, and it's that for the rest of your life. I don't know anyone, even people who've been around this 45 years, I think it is, who don't get lost in their own creations because it looks so real. But just to know and sometimes be suspicious of your own experience can give you a bit of space and like maybe not have that conversation, feeling like that. Like, and you see in our language, there's so many phrases that are pointing to this, like maybe sleep on it. Like how it feels now, it might feel different tomorrow. Like we've got so many things that try and point to us. Hang on a minute, like your mind is so creative that whatever it thinks it is, and that's what we want to take, whatever it thinks it is, but then we think something else and it's that. We think something else and it's that. There's this constant recreation, and then you realise we're not limited. Like sitting in this kind of environment, like giving a talk, would have just been, I never would have done it. Everyone out there would have made me feel nervous and insecure and looked at me. And to recognise that as just being in my own mind, then I've done all kinds of talks, all different kinds of people. People are people, and actually a feeling of shyness doesn't mean anything about me or the world or what I should or shouldn't do. It's a temporary manifestation of thought that I've bought into for a long, long time, but it's not, it doesn't have any power. And then sometimes I will get really shy again. It's like that's now not a problem, whereas before that was a thing I needed to work on and get rid of.
Well, that's who you were.
Yeah, and we had to fix it. So it's like that's why the title's like there's a freedom to experience anything. That is freedom. Whereas if you're trying to manage it and like move away from certain feelings and towards other feelings, as if some are right and some are wrong, it's a full-time job, and it's just more weight on us. Whereas I think this allows us just to be, experience more. Yeah, it's hot.
So, yeah, just move that on. We'll have 10 minutes.
So come back at 10 past?
Right, quarter past, I think.
Yeah, come back at quarter past.
Right, I can start. You two. Yeah, something that's just come up in the room is many people struggle with a mind that just chatters away and jibbers and jabbers and berates and beats up and can give us the feeling that we're actually driving ourselves mad. I think everybody will be familiar with that. Not bothering about that. You're not, no. Apart from the tree surgeon. And I know that's bollocks. Yeah, we're just saying, it can be really tempting for us to try and do something with this, to try and fix it, to apply something. Yeah.
No, it's just thoughts. So I shouldn't be feeling stressed.
I wasn't even reading that. In society as a whole, people often like when they go home at night, they might open up a bottle of wine to, it's my chill out time. I need this frigging gibbering on thing to shut its face up for a bit, so I'm going to numb it down. Or I might have a joint or whatever. Or I might go for a walk. I might get into running. I might go running and running and running, because if I don't, my mind's going to fire up, and I need my mind to be quiet because I just want a bit of rest from this thing that's continuously talking to me and preoccupying my being. And I think that's why I went to psychologists and psychiatrists, because I didn't want to have the experience that I was living in. I really believed that there was something wrong with me. And we have, we have people who come and say, I've tried everything, but I've never been able to fix myself. And we'll go, well, that makes total sense. What have you tried? I've tried this, I've tried that, this. It's interesting, though, you've never been able to fix yourself. Why do you think that is? We'll give a number of reasons. It's what happened back then. It's what they said. It's what I was thinking. It's like, no, it's far more simple than that. The reason why you can't fix yourself is because you're not broken. And I think for an individual to start to recognize that whatever is going on in their mind is absolutely fine. To begin with, first and foremost, there's no wrong thoughts. First and foremost, there is no wrong thoughts. No such thing as a wrong thought, you know. There's thoughts that you certainly wouldn't speak out loud. I'm pretty sure that we've all got them or have had them from time to time in our lives, where we're like, thank fuck nobody can see inside my mind right now. I would be totally arrested or beaten up or stabbed or whatever. We've all had those thoughts. I used to be terrified of my own. I mean, I say this, I've said it numerous times, but I'll say it again. The time I walked back from prison and I noticed 3 little kids stood outside of primary school, probably maximum age of 6, all by themselves. Parents, where were you? Because the first thing that ran into my mind was, wonder what they're worth on the black market. And then I laughed my head off as I walked up the street. I must have looked like a frigging nut job. Started laughing and I got in the car and I just walked. And then I had a bit of an insight. I was like, it was just, I just kind of realized myself, we've come a really long way. 2 years ago at that point, if that thought had occurred to you, you'd have thought that meant something about it. You'd have identified with that thought. You'd have been like, holy fucking shit, what are you? You a monster. You're not going to Google how much is a kid worth on the black market, are you? Because they're fucking watching you, you know? I'd have been like, is it a premonition? Is it this? Is it that? I'd have had all this thinking about that one thing. But in that moment, it was just something that came out of the blue. It came into my mind. It was birthed into my experience as a thought. I saw it for what it was. And it left. No kid was sold on the black market, as far as I'm aware, by myself in Barrow that night. No kids weapons. But we don't talk about that. As a society, we don't talk about mental frigging. And it becomes a point where we start to become afraid of our own mind. And so I remember having a conversation with a lady once, and she was talking about war. And she was saying about how she was a deeply religious Jewish lady who was talking about Palestine and Israel. And we got into this subject of war. I asked her a question. I said, can you bomb your way to peace? Can we ever bomb our way to peace? Can we fight? Can we shoot our way to peace? Can we berate? Can we beat down our way to peace? And she came to the conclusion that, yeah, you can bomb your way to peace. I see it a bit different. I said, I don't think you need to achieve peace. I don't think peace is an achievement. I think peace is a natural emergence. It's something that just happens at a very specific point in time. And it's when everybody puts down the weapons, the moment people stop fighting, peace just emerges. Communication can take place. And I said, we're having this conversation because you don't like your experience of life. You don't like all these feelings you have. You don't like your experience. Yet you fight yourself. Go to war with your own mind. Every time a thought comes up, you're like, oh, what the fuck am I thinking this for? Oh God, no, I don't want to be thinking this anymore. Don't think this, don't think this, don't think this. You go to war with your own mind. So this is what people do. They go to war with themselves. So the moment we put down the weapons, peace emerges. The moment we start to understand the nature of mind. We utilize thought. we as human beings, we utilize the power of thought. It's something that is in every single living being. Ed and I were once watching a spider. He was like, "What are you looking at?" Yeah, his usual cocky head way. I was looking at this spider, pal. What about it? Look, it's a genius. It's a frigging genius. Look what it's done. It's in this tree, and it's been very aware of its surroundings, and it's created this cobweb bed. Look at it. And we stopped and we watched this little insect fall into this. It wasn't a sticky cobweb, which are fantastically amazing. This was a ant, which had been pulled down so tight in the middle. But this little insect, we watched the little insect fall out the hedge into this thing and just wander down into this oubliette, like an oubliette in a castle, like in Annick Castle, where things go to be forgotten about. They put people to forget about. Put them in the hole, shut the lid. Little insect fell into this hole, apart from it wasn't forgotten about. It was noticed in a moment. Spider ran out, bit it through the net, and ran round. Took it. And we watched that happen. I swear. Genius. Look at the genius. Tiny little brain. So tiny a brain you possibly couldn't even see it with your naked eye. But this genius that was coming from this arachnid that could utilize its environment, different strengths of different tensions of material, different types of material for different parts of the web. And Ed took one look at it. He inspired me. I've written a chapter from the book about this moment. He just said, "It's a tiny physicist." Yeah. I said, like somebody who is sitting down to design a bridge, first thing they must do is they must look at where they want the bridge to go. They look at the environment, what can we use? What do we need to span? What's our achievement here? We want to do X. Right, well, we've got that. Okay, what we're going to use? What's the materials? What angles we're going to use? What tension are we going to use? It was the same thing taking place within the mind of this tiny little spider that everybody, including myself in the past, had probably just walked past and never given a freaking moment's notice. But it was then, it became almost, I got an insight into the nature of intelligence at that point. How intelligence isn't who we are, it's what we are. Everything is intelligence. The fact that the plant on that windowsill over there has got chlorophyll in it, which absorbs the light from a celestial body 90 million miles away, built into each cell of the plant. Chlorophyll cell is knowledge of the sun. This whole thing, everything, look at the state of us. I mean, we're phenomenal. Yet humanity didn't create us. But there is a deep intelligence behind life. And we are that. It solves everything else. Everything is this one deep intelligence. The thing that unifies a flower with an insect. The thing that unifies oxygen and carbon, the carbon cycle, and the animal taking in oxygen and excreting carbon dioxide, and then the plant taking in carbon dioxide and excreting oxygen. It's like when you really take a deep look at life, you realize it's so phenomenally perfect. It's beautiful. One of the best insights I ever got was into a thorn. A thorn that you get on a plant only works because of a nervous system, animal nervous system, not even in the same kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom. Totally different kingdoms, yet built into the thorn is awareness of a nervous system, because without a nervous system, the thorn is totally useless, completely pointless. Doesn't work. Thorn does not have any use without a nervous system. So it requires a nervous system for the protection of the plant. Yet the plant doesn't have a nervous system attached to a brain like the animal. Yet built into the thorn is knowledge of the nervous system. And you start to look at life and you realize there is this deep knowledge. There is this deep knowledge behind all life, behind this universe. The order of everything, the way that things are just so frigging beautiful. Science has neglected that up to fairly recently, I feel. It was like the spiritual side of life was something that could never be studied. So it was like, well, science only studies what's here, what's real, what's true. So we'll fuck spirituality off. God, forget it. We're talking about what's real. And then so science went one way, and then spirituality went to churches and cults and belief systems. I often feel like religion and science could come together and recognize they're ultimately talking about the same thing. When we look at things that have been created, we're looking at creation. Everything is creation that we get to experience, even down to every single thought, feeling, or emotion is creation taking place. But there is a creator. Every single thing has an opposite. Top, bottom, front, back, light, dark, heavy, light, dry, wet. Something, nothing. Here we are, something. There is a nothing part to us as well. There is a nothing part to life. And it's one of the things Sydney Banks used to say was everything comes from nothing. Get your head around it. Everything comes from nothing. Everything that exists has fundamentally been created from nothing. Back to the quantum physics point, if you could get a microscope and study that, you would recognize there is nothing there except a shimmer of what people call energy. People, oh, energy, okay, what's another word for energy? God, okay, all right, God. Oh, I know what God is, okay. Well, what's energy? Do you know what energy is? What's energy? What's this formless power that creates everything? What is it? You start to realize our whole reality is built on a complete fucking mystery. Complete mystery. And we walk around in this world thinking we know stuff. We know who we are. We know what the future holds. But at some point, our little ego gives up. Try to figure everything out. It resigns itself. It's not something that we can do. It's not something that you can make happen. But at some point, our little ego steps aside. Can't figure something out. So we get quiet. And in that quiet, knowledge emerges. It's not knowledge from our intellect. It's not knowledge from what we've already studied or read or already know. But it's knowledge that emerges in a moment from nowhere. From nowhere comes this insight of, oh, I know what to do. I know what to do. Or I get what they're saying there. From nowhere comes this new knowledge. We were working in South Africa with these young girls, weren't we? And they were like, if this Sydney Banks had never read any books, how did he know? Where did he get all his information from? And I just say, you could see them all going, Google, say Google. You just said, original thought. Where do you think all ideas are born? They're born from an original thought. What is thought? It's infinite potential. You can never get to the end of thought. You can never get to the end of thought, which means something massive. You can never get to the end of experience, which also means we're not what we think we are. Because what we think we are is finite, it's limited. Thought isn't limited. Power of thought is not limited. We are not what we think we are. We are the power of thought. We are the dreamer of the dream state. We're starting to wake up to that. We start to recognize we are something far greater than anything we've ever given comprehension to or considered before in the past. where in the past, when we've had these horrible experiences and these busy, busy minds, it's been so tempting. I often liken it to thought. I often liken thoughts to being like waves on an ocean. Sometimes the ocean gets choppy. Sometimes it's really stormy and destructive. It takes out train lines. It destroys. It brings houses off the cliffs in one storm. And then you wake up in the morning and you look out and you look at the calm storm. The seas calm down. It's still again. You look at the destruction. You can't believe what's happened. That did God. It's the same thing like our mind. But we've got so used to looking at the waves. If we ever go down to the beach and we look at the sea, we have a singular point of view of the sea. You simply see the surface, the persona, the character of the sea. And this character is simply how it appears. Now we know the sea chops and changes its mind. It does whatever it's doing. Sometimes it's stormy, sometimes. And we forget about the depth. We forget about the part of the ocean you cannot see. So we're so busy identifying the sea with the surface. How's the sea doing to its choppy as out of it? It's like that with our mind. I often liken thoughts to the waves on the ocean. We get mesmerized by them. And people are so tempted the moment they have waves in their mind or thoughts in their mind that they don't like. They're so tempted to try and get rid of it. And I liken that to walking out into the ocean and when a wave pops up, trying to push it back down. Trying to push a wave back down with our hands and trying to suppress the wave. What does it do? It doesn't get rid of the wave. It creates turbulence in the water. It creates more waves. And this is what we've been taught to do. We've been taught to work on our mind, train them up. But a mind left alone, like the ocean after a storm, will naturally control. It's not that we have to do anything. Our biggest problem is we interfere with our own mind. We're afraid of our own. But anybody who wakes up to the realization that reality is mind in action, it's all thought. When I'm having all this busy thinking, the world seems like a really scary, anxious place. I get pissed off with myself. I feel fed up. Life's difficult. It's also doing life wrong. But when we start to wake up and recognize this is part of the illusion of life, our reality is all thought. It's like we start to take what we think far less seriously. Thought isn't a bad thing, it's a beautiful thing. That when misunderstood can create hell. Heaven and hell, Jesus spoke about as being states of consciousness. Jesus didn't speak about heaven and hell being places you went after death. When you listen to the original speakings of Jesus, Jesus said heaven and hell exist within everybody. A state of consciousness, whatever word they used for consciousness back in the day. And when we have an expansion of consciousness, we find ourselves in heaven. We find ourselves in this open mind where everything's beautiful. Heaven. And then when we get so limited by our thinking and so focused and so kind of singular-minded and egoic, we find ourselves in hell. And I think that's a really beautiful metaphor to try and explain. Thought creates reality. Busy minds feel a certain way, and that's the experience of life that we're going to be in that moment. You didn't take that down yourself. It is a truly beautiful thing to realize. We don't need, there's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with what we're thinking. There's nothing wrong with the way we're feeling. Our feelings are not indication that there's something wrong either. Our feelings are indication of what's going on within consciousness for us in any given moment. And the more that we wake up and realize that reality is taking place within us, not happening to us, or you could say reality is coming through us, it's not happening to us, the more at peace we can be with understanding the nature of life. And the more at peace we are with understanding the nature of life, the more we experience that as a reality, the more fundamental peace we find in life. And like Jenny says, it's not that you then walk around life in a blissed out state for the rest of your life. You're not actually afraid to feel. All of a sudden, all those feelings that you were so afraid of to actually experience, although they're terrible feelings, you suddenly realize, no, they're part of this vast spectrum we call our life. And when we start to embrace, I'm not saying when I feel anxious, it feels beautiful. No, I feel frigging anxious. It feels anxious. It's anxiousness taking place within consciousness. It's created by a perception. And I know it's created by a perception because if everybody else, if it was the situation creating the experience, everybody else would be experiencing the same thing as well.
And also, I think when you realise that the experience of anxious is actually, if you wrote down the symptoms, it could also be described as excitement, like when you're excited about that something's going to happen. And I remember someone saying that. I was like, so it's whether or not we think the feeling is good or bad will take on a whole meaning for us. Whereas actually the sensation of it in itself, without judgment, it is the same feeling, it's the same experience in the body. So. And also, Lisa, you wanted to say something about. Is it something?
Yeah, it was when I think it's just one of the biggest things I realised was that this works for me, this works for everybody else, and we're only ever at the mercy of what we're thinking. We're only ever this applies to everything in life, every person in life, and it's quite hard to get offended by anybody when you understand how it works for you. You understand that's how it works for other people as well. And I think there's so much peace in that. So much peace in that when, say, you get a customer who's particularly difficult to deal with. It's hard to ever feel anything other than like compassion for those people that are being really, really awkward, because it's they're feeling in an awkward way, they're experiencing awkwardness themselves. I work a lot with the general public and work with lots of different people and lots of amazing people, and it's made my job so much easier, knowing that it's got absolutely nothing to do with me, the way they are, or the fact that I have to be offended by their, things that I would have once found irritating about people. It's just not there anymore. It's impossible to feel offended by somebody when you know they're just experiencing their thinking in the moment, and that they're not. If we could choose to feel in a different state, then we will, but it just breezes through. So I think when you were saying that before, Dave, about your three lads on the street in Barrow, and how you would have once thought something about yourself. People act out of that place innocently. So somebody might have that thought, they might act on that and play out that because they have no knowledge of how they work or how they experience life. Therefore, the biggest thing that I realised genuinely, the level that I couldn't really ever explain, is the innocence in everybody, no matter what they've done or do or proceed to do. They're only ever experiencing the thought in the moment. And if they don't know, they think they're only ever at the mercy of it. So no matter what people have done in the past or or whatever they do, if they don't know that's how they work, that's what happens. Does that make any sense?
Totally.
That's beautiful.
So it kind of, for me, that set me free.
This is it.
Well, that was a very trap, but you know.
People, and I love that story about you because you would always describe yourself as the happiest person you knew, and yet you came across this understanding. And I can't believe the shift that took place within your being.
Yeah.
It's like it's night and day. And so it's like this isn't even about a conversation about unhappiness or depression or mental illness or anything like that. This is a conversation about what is life? What is it? Where is it? And I think this is a conversation that is so needed in the world. And like you and I, we have such a privileged life. We travel to all these different parts of the world. We work with all different kinds of populations of people. And sometimes we come across Leanne, who's online. Oh, she's gone now. Leanne.
She's a few hours ahead, so she said she'd leave early.
She once said to us, I really want to see this working in a charity situation or a business situation in South Africa. And we've just given the first program, delivered the first program in South Africa of this conversation. And we just said to her, well, if you want to see that, you have to make it happen because you're the pioneers now. You are the pioneers in your country to take this knowledge, this information out to the people of South Africa. And we say, you know, people have thrown money at South Africa. Big, you know, still a big divide in South Africa. It's better than what it was, but there's a lot of frigging hatred amongst each other. It's a really kind of hostile place at times, isn't it? And we went to a soup kitchen once. I always remember our friend coming out going, the problem's too big. Look at all these homeless people. The problem's too big. This is just a fraction of the people in Cape Town. The problem's too big. And we're like, no, it's not. The problem's really difficult if you look at the problem from a material point of view. People need homes, people need food, people need equality, people need medicine, people need this, people need that. Yeah, then it looks a very overwhelming thing. But when you look at South Africa from the point of view that South Africa will change when people's thinking changes about one another. Once people drop the stories that they've been carrying around, their beliefs, their ego, the stories that they've been carrying around one another, they realize, oh, we're all the same thing. I don't mean that in like some really hippie way. No, we are all the same thing. We are all conscious thinking beings dreaming of the reality. We believe what we see. Or should I say, we see what we believe. Probably more accurately. We see what we believe. We worked with that man who came into that soup kitchen and he didn't like me because I was white. I was telling you about this, Lee. He didn't like me because I was white. And he said I was suppressing him, and I said to him, so you have to show me this suppression because I can't see it right now. Where's this suppression? You're suppressing me. You're white. You're suppressing me. I said, sorry, I'm really struggling. You're going to have to, he was massive. I don't know. This is just what came out of my mouth. If I thought about it, I'd have probably chickened out saying this. I was like, you're going to have to show me this suppression because I can't see it. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're going to have to touch it. I said, because I can't see it. So sorry. And then we had a bit of a conversation about the nature of, this. Did you know that everybody's a thinker? And this is how experience is created as a conscious state. It's thinking. And this is how reality is. And if we carry around the belief that white people suppress, guess what's going to come up every single time we see a white person? Frustration, anger, hatred, judgment, fear. But did you know that's a belief? Did you know that the moment that belief takes a back step, your experience of life is going to change like that? That's all we're ever up against, thought. It's the only thing that's ever happening, thought. And this man burst into tears. He towered over me. And he burst into tears. And he sat down in this chair. He just slumped back into this chair and he just said, "You've set me free." He says, "You've set me free." I said, "No, I haven't. I haven't done that." I said, "You've done that. You've set you free. I can't make you see anything. I can use words. You have to see past the words. You've done that." And that man then hovered around. He was the last person to leave. This man who hated us was the last person to leave. He was smiling. He was buoyant. He was upbeat. He was stood upright. Worlds change as thinking changes. The world is as it is now. It's perfect. It cannot be any other way, given the thinking that has happened to humanity and all other beings on the planet up until this very moment. It's perfect. It cannot be anything else. Melting ice caps, potential war going to kick off in Iran, Brexit, Donald Trump. It can't be anything other than what it is. It's absolutely perfect, given what thought has occurred. You see, this isn't a personal thing.
I just wanted to say, like, the soup kitchen that we attended was started by a lady who, like, had her own wake up. I think she just was kind of in the rat race and living a life, and it was all about kind of herself, and she struggled quite a lot, and she said she doesn't know what happened, but she just sort of had this wake up, and she just wanted to do a small amount to serve other people. So she started serving soup out of her car, and then it kind of got bigger and bigger, and she approached people and she got donations, and then she got a venue, and so she started a charity in South Africa called Super Troopers, and she's touched so many people's lives. And like at that particular event, they had different people stand up and speak, and they had a singer, and they had all these different things. And then one guy just stood up and just said, "Kerry loves us. Like, we come here and we feel loved." And I don't think we realised how special that was for the people, like, until you just saw them. Like, they hadn't felt loved by anyone for some of them most of their lives.
She
or any
sees
of their
their
time.
humanity, doesn't she?
And she doesn't see homeless people, she just sees people, and she connects with them, and she has conversations, and she has a laugh. And that's the thing about this, it's already up and running, it's already true. There's not something in this conversation that you have to remember. It's like, it's who you already are. It's not, there isn't anyone who can't see this. There isn't any limits to what we can wake up to and see and achieve and do. There isn't anyone better or more spiritual or more able. Like, it's within all of us. And I think she was a brilliant testament to that, because she loved then coming across this conversation. Wow, it's almost like I had a massive insight and it changed my life. It blew all the other thinking out of the water, and I had this new realization, and suddenly South Africa looked different to me. And I realized I don't have to look at the massive problem and think, how are we going to deal with it? I'm going to start here and start connecting with people. And she's such an inspirational woman, isn't she? She's
beautiful.
And it's like something Lee said, it's like suddenly life doesn't feel as personal, when it's less about self-focused and who I am and how I'm doing. And that seems to be a shift that you don't have to consciously do. It just seems less necessary to look at ourselves and analyse our thinking and try and get out of thinking. It just seems, you know, that's what it is, and you're going to go in and out of different experience, and then you feel more peace, you find more compassion. Like, this is shared a lot in the prison systems, and I've got a lot of friends in America who go in, and they said, you don't want to see some of the sheets or the history of the people you're working with, because you don't want that on your mind when you're working with people. She said, but what you get when you start sharing this in groups of people in maximum security prisons is you start seeing people as people, and people breaking down and realising, people finding freedom, people recognising something within themselves that can't be taken away. It can't be.
I was just thinking about the lad who worked in prison. We spoke in a prison one time about this, and this lad just went, right, I'm a gypsy. He said, I don't have to steal and break the law. Well, no, it's freaking obvious to us that you don't have to do that. But to him, he's like, no, you don't understand. We're brought up This is him. I'm not. This is not me being
He's on,
racist.
he's on,
Yeah.
he's on video
He said,
talking about it.
no, really. He said, we're brought up. I've been brought up to break the law. That's what I do. I'm a gypsy. He said, but I don't have to do that. I'm like, no. He said, I've been in and out of prison all my life. This can stop. I'm like, yeah. Oh my God. And this man's life changed like that. One new thought, one insight later, whole new reality of life. What have I been doing? And this is the thing, until we know, we don't know.
I was just going to say, it's 10-2. I'd love to know if people have got questions, either online or in the room, or comments.
I went down to London this weekend, and I met, was down in a rehab, residential rehab place down there, and I met this guy who was just one of the most beautiful guys, and he murdered 2 people when he was 16, and he'd been in prison for 27 years, and he was in this place not because he had a substance problem. He was in there because he was trying to reintegrate back into society, having been in prison since he was 16 years old and never actually living as an adult in life.
Society.
He'd been from a parental to a prison, and that's all he'd ever known. And it was only when I was driving home, his experience was blowing my mind when I was driving home. And I realised how much I had changed, because this guy walked into this room and we sat and we chatted for ages, and he was gorgeous, so beautiful, such a nice person. I thought, I'm so glad that I've come across that this got pointed out and it hit so deep, because it allowed me to, not even allowed me, it was a pleasure to sit with that guy and know that what he did was an action in a moment, and see what a beautiful person that he actually was.
That's not who he is.
It's not who he is, it's just something that he did. And I love that about life now, because there would have been a time that I would have probably shit myself if I was in a sat with a guy who'd murdered 2 people. But then when you hear his backstory of life, it's pretty toughest thing I've ever heard. But it was such a pleasure to meet him.
I think that is another really beautiful thing. Which isn't to excuse, just to back that up, not to excuse what he did or condone it in any way whatsoever, not even in the slightest. But to understand it is a different thing altogether. That's the thing, isn't it? This is what we often say. It's like, this isn't a conversation about what to do or what not to do. This is a conversation about awareness. This is about awareness. And, you know, to an individual, or to all of us, in fact, to every single one of us, every single behaviour we've ever carried out because of thought. We feel a certain way, so therefore we act out of it. When I feel angry, I can be a right dickhead. You know, I can say things I perhaps don't mean, or I mean in the moment, and then I don't mean it when I calm down. It's like we act out of these emotional states, but we feel like these emotional states are information about the individual speaking to or a situation. We don't realise, no, this emotional state we're in right now is a consequence of thought. It's a perspective. Now, when somebody gets onto that trick and starts to realise the trick of life, it's all thought. The whole thing is a game of thought. All thought. We're all here thinking of reality right now, or experiencing reality via consciousness. Consciousness, mind, thought, they're all the same thing. It's a formless power that is enlivening life. Power behind life. We're not plugged into the mains, or we don't have a battery pack, yet we are enlivened. It's like to an individual who wakes up to that, you start to find there is an innocence to people's behavior. It's like thought is so compellingly real as a reality. It's this right now, look at it. It's phenomenal. It's three-dimensional, it's colourful, it's vibrant. It's like, it's very easy to get tricked by it. And we will be tricked by it until we wake up and realise and see it for what it is. And this is why, again, why this is such an important conversation. Because to get onto the trick is to start to find freedom from behaviours, addictions, and things like addictions of thought. Tell somebody who's got an addiction, no, my addiction is cigarettes, my addiction is drugs, drink, whatever. That stuff. No, your addiction is thought. Where is your addiction? Where is your craving when you're not thinking about drugs, drink, or whatever? Where is it? Where's the addiction in that moment?
But like people think like Facebook and things like that, it's Facebook doesn't make you use it.
No.
Alcohol doesn't make you drink it. Cigarettes don't make you smoke them. It's all an experience of.
That's right.
I think as well, it's nice with this. This isn't about getting people to somewhere. It isn't about getting people to give up addiction or people to have a certain kind of experience. It's a conversation. I think it's been so interesting over the years to kind of see people who, like I remember a lady at the training I was at in America in Santa Clara County, said that she'd come across this when she'd been addicted to heroin and on the streets for years, and she came across this and she just heard it. And it was like she just had this wake up and she started teaching, and for a good 3 or 4 years she was just so alive with it all. And then I don't know what happened, but she slipped back into her addiction. And then I was seeing her at a point where she'd been off on that journey for a year and she was just coming out of it again. And I think she said what she realized is she gained respect for the nature and the power of a source that creates a reality. That she realized how arrogant we get when we think we know something and we've got one over on life, and that we know that it's just thought so. And it really, really humbled her, and I think her teaching changed quite a lot. And I don't know where she is now. I don't know if she stayed in her recovery or whether she's gone back, but it's been really nice to recognize, like, to not have such an agenda with people thinking we know what's right for someone else. But I have seen that as people learn this, it seems they move in a direction towards health, towards thriving in life. But then also I know, and we often speak about, like, sometimes when you've been through difficult times in your life, then when you come out of it, what you've learned is so valuable. So I don't know if people have lessons to learn. I don't know if that's true or not, but you stop having such an agenda with people, and then you just get to meet people and respect them regardless of where they're at and what they're seeing. And I think that you don't have judgment, like you just have total respect for when reality is created through us. That's all you can see. It looks real. And if you don't have the thought to question it, or you don't have the thought this isn't real, then you'll just live out of it. And I think then you see innocence and you have compassion, and then you get to live in that, and other people get to experience that from you. And I think that in itself is healing for the world. Like, it doesn't have to be teaching people about this. It's just like being with other people and hanging out with people where, you know, a lot of people would realize, oh, you've killed people, I don't want to talk to you, and have that kind of judgment. And you categorize people, but you suddenly see people as people. I think but to know that this isn't about getting people from A to B, it's about allowing people to see what's happening in the moment within their own mind, and to recognize that sometimes it might just be a bit more peace today than I normally have, like a small amount more than I normally have. I was less caught up in my anxiety, or I didn't worry as much before that job interview. Like, things like that often occur to people, but it's not like a goal. It's not like trying to get your mind somewhere. And I think because we're so used to learning things about the mind or about ourselves, that we always have like this goal of where we want to get to, but then it creates this dissatisfaction with where we are. And I think this is just allowing us to have peace with where we are. And it might not be what we think it should look like. And I know there's been things on my kind of list of, if I didn't think like that, it'd be so useful. And I've had no insight around it whatsoever. And there's been other areas where I didn't even recognize habits of a lifetime have just fallen away. But you start to see that it isn't this isn't about focusing on a problem and now apply the principles or apply this understanding. It's recognizing that problems are created within the mind, and experience is created within the mind, and experience is in our mind. And the more that we acknowledge that, it does seem we are gifted. It feels like it is a gift, gifted new thought, gifted insight, gifted new perspective. But I think what often keeps people striving is because they want a different experience than the one they're having. I want to see more, I want to see deeper. And like, I always remember one of the early talks I listened to of Sid, when most of the stuff he spoke about made no sense to me. Like a lot of the stuff he speaks about now makes no sense to me. But I remember him saying, just be grateful for what you've seen. That's enough. And he said, the minute it seems you get to see more. But what we do is like, this is great, oh, more of it. Or we have a beautiful feeling and we want to hold on to it, so we restrict it again. But to know that this isn't something we can hold or maintain or do, it's just something that is. And it's in the moments when we're forgetting, it's the same power creating that as when we're remembering. So I think all of those kind of dualities between right, wrong, good, bad, seeing, not seeing, you recognize, well, it's always working one way. It's always being created from the inside out. I'm always experiencing mind through thought and consciousness. That's always true. And there's nothing then to do with it. There's no then now go away and practice or now go away and remember. But it's like there's something wakes up in us which seems to allow us to remember more often. But to also know that there isn't, like we said, there isn't a beginning and an end. No. There isn't a somewhere to get to or a somewhere to move away from. It's not that, it's not linear in that way. And I've met people who have just come across this, who they start speaking and I'm like, wow. And then there's been people that I've listened to for years. I'm like, wow, there hasn't been much movement. You're still saying the same thing you were 10 years ago. But again, like, no judgment, but this isn't based in time. You haven't got to look to other people to give you knowledge. It's like it's within you. I think the only thing this does is seem to uncover that more and more in people. Like, I'm always astounded with these courses and talks that what insights people have. I know we didn't speak about that in the group, but the insight that came to people was completely for them perfect. So it's this impersonal source that then gives us personal insight that's helpful. But it's not on our time scale. It's not, one of our friends says, it's not insight on demand. But you know that it's possible. And I think that that's the freedom. But it's not about getting anywhere.
It was just the biggest thing for me was that I just realised that I feel my thinking. And people spoke about it before, and a lot of it, oh yeah, but it's only when you get it yourself that there was nothing exterior that was making me feel the way. It was just my own thinking, that whatever I think is the way I feel. And that was like just massive. Because then suddenly you can just think another thought, something different, and feel different. So if you feel sad, think of something, and it sounds so simplistic and so easy, but just think of something nicer, and all of a sudden we feel nicer. You can't think of two things at the same time, bad, good. You can only do one. So if you're thinking really sad and you think of something nicer, you feel better.
But it's just knowing that it's only thought.
Yeah.
You don't have to try to.
You don't have to, no.
It's just a thought, isn't it?
But to realise that actually everything you feel is just your thinking in the moment. And that was just massive. I've heard it before lots of times. It's just when you get the insight yourself. That's it. That's it. It's when you get that insight yourself. Like, that's what it meant.
Yeah, because this can all make sense to the intellect. So, yeah, sorry. This can all make sense to the intellect, but the intellect always wants to know stuff. So it'll create an idea of what it could be. The amount of people that we say, right, all right, you could have a conversation with us. What do you think you're looking for? Well, it looks like I think I'm looking for total oneness with God at all times. You are that already. There's nothing you can do about that. You are already it. You know, like, all right, so what else do you think you're looking for? Happiness, complete happiness, like pure, unconditional happiness all the time. Like, right, so you've created a concept in your mind, and now you're measuring life to this idea of what you think you're looking for. What if that's totally made up and the one thing that's keeping you stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction? Because that's exactly what that one thought will do. It's like, what people are truly looking for cannot be thought to. Because what we're really looking for is we're looking for ourselves. And it's like Sidney Banks would say, he said, the self you're looking for isn't your ego. That's always showing itself. What you're looking for is the thing that created the life in the first place. The thing that creates life, the essence of life, because that's what everybody is an essence of life, creating an experience of life by a thought. The essence of life is consciousness. The soul, some people call it the soul, and Sid would say your soul is just pure consciousness. Nothing wacky and out of the way, pure consciousness. It's this awareness state that is infinite. And this awareness state thinks and it creates reality, and we get lost in the play, the story of our life. Reality is a story. This is why you meet human beings all over the world. No two people will tell you the same story of life. We were speaking to a policewoman, weren't we, recently, and she was going, oh, this makes so much sense. I remember one time I went to there was a robbery, an armed robbery, and there was 4 people looking at it from different points in the garage, different angles. It was like they described it in totally different. I'm like, were you actually there? I got to see the CCTV of what actually happened.
She saw all 4 people were there.
Yeah, and she said they were all there. And she said one person described him as bald, another person described him as having a motorcycle helmet on. It's like, she said that makes sense. Everybody sees a different world. Everybody sees a different reality. And everyone's convinced that the way they see the world is a fact. But there's 7.7 billion human beings on Earth. And no 2 of us are seeing the same world. Whose reality is the factual reality? 7.7 billion at this moment, separate realities of human beings, each walking around in our own world, manifesting our own realities with our own thinking. Whose reality is the true reality? Whose reality is the fact? Well, everybody's going to go mine. The way I see the world's right. I think you really start to get an appreciation when you look at that. But the reality that we see is subjective, same as everybody else's. So if it's something that's subjective, it's not a fact. If it was a fact, everybody will be seeing it the same way. So what is a fact in life? The way that life comes into being in the first place. The creator is a fact. What is created afterwards is subjective. What is created as a consequence is subjective. Reality is subjective. The way I see the world, Jenny sees it very differently many, many, many times. We see the same thing, we're like, no, it's like this, no, it's like that, no, you're a dickhead. No, you are. it's like because we don't see the same reality. So it's like when we start to get an appreciation of the nature of reality, it's all a subjective state of consciousness. It's a magical display of consciousness. This is mind-blowing stuff. I mean, we can talk about it in a linear kind of fashion, but this isn't a linear thing. It's a mind-blowing. It's a happening of life. It's magical. I can't explain it beyond that.
Every single thing that exists is thought.
Every single thing that exists is thought.
Films, books, doors, carpets, zips, shoes, bottles, all of it. Zips.
No, not zips.
Zips. All of it. And when you look at storybooks and when you look at films and when they're creations in people's minds that they then put into words and make into stories, and that's all that's ever going on in life, just living loads of stories.
It's all a story. And it's like then people have tried to make sense of life. But when you get down to ground zero, you realize the sense of life. It's like when you get down to the absolute foundation of life, we all have ideas of whatever. But when you get down to the foundation, you realize that it's all created the same way. There is nothing experienced outside of consciousness. Nothing. There is no experience without consciousness. It doesn't exist. You cannot experience a thing. If it's a hypnotic state, you've been hypnotized, that's still going on within consciousness. whether it's a moment of enlightenment, that's still going on in consciousness. There is no experience outside of consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental to experience or fundamental to reality. There is no experience outside of thought. Whatever we think about something is the way it feels. So this is why what Sid brought to the world was something so beautiful, because he brought a foundation. All life is a creation from this point within everybody that manifests itself out as a reality. And I don't mean outside of our consciousness. I mean, it manifests itself within consciousness as a reality. There is no outside of consciousness. You can never know outside of consciousness. There is no outside of it. It's the only thing that's ever taken place in creating all experience. All experience is the same thing. Consciousness, creating experience. Thought, creating experience. Whether it's heaven or hell, right or wrong, good or bad, it's all the same thing. To start to see that it's the key to life. Sorry.
Well, just what I found when someone else is different. For instance, with our son, we said last week, he's coming home for the weekend. He never comes home for the weekend unless there's something wrong. So we just thought, well, no, because he's perfect. There's nothing wrong with him. We'll just see him as really perfect. It'll be fine. And he did show up saying, he split up with his boyfriend, but he was all right. Usually he'd come and be upset and he'd bring us down, but because I held it firm and I knew, I wasn't like pretending, pretend he's really all right. I really knew he was all right. And we had a laugh at the weekend and it was fine. He said, we'll probably be back together. So a whole different scenario turned up just because I started seeing that I don't need to worry about him. He is okay. He's definitely okay. No matter what comes and tells me, he's all right. And that, like he could feel that coming, that confidence coming from me. Because we try and tell him about this, but he won't listen. But he kind of turned up different anyway, without me even after saying anything. So I found that a lot happening.
So that says so much, doesn't it? That's.
This is it. It's like if a relationship of two,
Yeah.
we'll call it a day now. But if a relationship of two people is 100%, and 50% of that, if 50% of that relationship changes. We notice this within our family, 50% of the relationship within the family changes. Then the whole relationship has changed. It doesn't need the other person to change for the relationship to change. The world changes as our thinking changes. It feels different, it looks different. Things look possible or impossible. As thinking changes, comes and goes. And this is why people come to us and they go, I need you to speak to them because I need them to change. We're like, right, we need to speak to you. We need to speak to you. You sit down. Because we know that if somebody's needing the other person to change, they're in the illusion that something external of them, something outside of consciousness, their experience of consciousness in that moment, they're in the belief that there is something subjecting its influence upon their being. But there is nothing nothing outside of thought or consciousness that can affect our experience. It's all an internal happening, and there is no outside of it. So I think that's beautiful. I'm glad about that.
It makes a big difference to a relationship once you realise.
Right.
Thanks everyone online.
We're going to call it a night.
It's really good.
I'll unmute everyone if you want to say.
Thank you.
So lovely to see you.
Oh,
Thanks, guys.
thanks, Loving.
See you next. We'll be in touch. Okay.
Thanks, Helena.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Wow.
Thanks, guys. Really nice to meet you. Yeah.